Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. We are back on the dev server and we're having a look at a new Russian vehicle that is coming in to the standard tech tree, and I'm super happy to see this one. This is the BMD-4M2, and after the longest time of basically having these vehicles in a premium section and also in an event section, we finally have a BMD that is in the tech tree. Now, Russia has had a lot of light tanks added to them over the years, including the BMP-1s, the BMP-2s, some gun light tanks as well, like the Spruts and also the Object 906, plus, of course, the 685. But one of the vehicles that has just been missed out from the standard tech tree is the BMD series, which you can find over here. So it's really nice to see the fact that they brought in the BMD-4M2 finally as a standard tech tree vehicle, so therefore everybody gets to experience this type of vehicle in the game itself. The BMD-4s have some really cool characteristics to them, and in this video we'll cover them and also some of the other parts to them. So all of them have this interesting turret, which has this gun setup. You have a 100mm 2A70 cannon. You also have access to a 30mm 2A72 cannon. And basically, what this does is these two guns work in tandem. You have a 30mm rapid-fire APDS belt, which just does so much damage. Like, they actually talked about last year they were going to nerf the kind of post-penetration effect of these guns, and then they just never did. So it really does a very, very aggressive cone of damage as long as you penetrate. And then the 100mm, you have a bunch of funny HE rounds, which you could kind of use to overpressure people, but your main use of it is the tandem ATGM, the 9M117M1. But what is interesting about the BMD is you can only take so many of them, and the rest have to be HE. So basically, if you kind of go in a test drive in a BMD, you may see that you can only bring 4 of the ATGMs, and then the rest has to be the HE. And that's because it's limited to these 4 of the ATGMs. So you have to kind of play around that. You also have a different reload based on what you are loading in. But this ATGM is really powerful. And the other thing that makes the BMD-4 a lot better than many of the other kind of ATGM vehicles across the nations is it can fire on the move. So it can use its extreme mobility to be able to get to areas quickly, use the missiles to hammer stuff, and then also rat-a-tat-a-tat with the gun too, which is why it's extremely fun for so many different people. Now, the engine on this vehicle is the Transmash UTD-29. It's a 500 horsepower diesel. May not seem too powerful, but understand that this vehicle has a 14.3 mass, tonnage of mass. It also has a very good transmission, which is similar to a lot of other vehicles that are around the place. One of the things about the BMD-4M2 and also the 4M, which is the premium version, is they're technically slightly worse than the BMD-4M that you can see. Oh, sorry, it's the standard BMD-4, which you can see here. This one actually has the updated X-ray as well, because this one uses a 450 horsepower engine, but it has a much better transmission, meaning that you can fly forwards and fly backwards. Whereas the 4M2 and also the 4M, one of the kind of key points of this modernization was to bring them more in line in terms of parts commonality with stuff like the BMP series. So therefore, it was easier to repair these things, easier to produce these things, and all of that stuff. So that means in certain areas it has been improved, but other areas it has actually got worse. And one of them is this transmission. You can still go 20 kilometers an hour backwards, which is still really good, but it's not anywhere near the strength of the BMD-4. The other part, which is also different, as you can see, is the kind of optics that you have on the top. This vehicle has access to a commander optics, which has a 20 times zoom, and a gunner optics, which has the tracker RST, of course, and also a very nice zoom on it too. And you also have crazy thermals on this machine, which helps out quite a lot as well while you're running around and gunning and rack attacking and going crazy. This is the type of vehicle that a lot of people use to try and get very aggressive advantages in games, because around these VRs you run into a lot of vehicles that don't have a ton of armor on the sides of them, and then also at the same time, basically since you have a really good targeting speed, you can also rat-a-tat a lot of the light tanks that you find around these BRs. One of the hilarious things about the BMD-4 is there are actually other nations that have similar vehicles, but they actually get kind of canned on by Russian MBTs, because one of the key parts of this round is it only has 82 millimeters of penetration, similar to the 25 millimeter on stuff like the Desert Warrior, which, by the way, is higher BR than this, which is hilarious. You can see this one only has 92 millimeters on the APF SDS and also 81 millimeters on the APDS. And one of the key vehicles for the Russians around this BR, which you'll fight a lot if you're not in the Russian tech tree, is the T80UD. And guess what? The T80UD on the side has about 100 millimeters worth of armor, which basically means that you cannot actually pen it with most of the rounds that you run into. You can only pen this booty part, so you can only take out its engine and then try and hopefully get around the side. So because of the fact that these BMDs are in the Russian tech tree, it actually buffs them quite a lot, because they don't face the things which are better, which can actually defend against its gun. Everything else, it has very obvious weak spots where you can just rat-a-tat-a-tat-a-tat and go a bit crazy. So, talking about some other factors, this vehicle has a crazy good targeting speed, as I talked about before. It has a horizontal traverse of 60 degrees per second and a vertical traverse of 60 degrees per second. So you can just whack and fly the gun around the place. One of the areas it isn't good is its survivability. Pretty obviously, this thing is designed to be part of, I think, the VDV operations. So it's supposed to be light, supposed to be airdroppable, also supposed to be amphibious. So it doesn't have a lot of armor, but it also has more armor than a lot of other vehicles that are of similar stature. You have 60 millimeters on the front of it. You also have 70 millimeters around the guns, but on the side, 43 millimeters. And then also on the booty, you have some areas with 10 millimeters. Most guns and autocannons are going to go through this no issue, really. They will lose a bit of post-penetration effect, especially if you're using the 25 millimeter that we talked about before. But generally, even though it has a bit more armor than a lot of other kind of light tanks, it's still not good enough to be able to stop anything. It might actually be better if it had slightly less armor, so therefore it would be a bit lighter and make it a little bit easier to use. So let's talk about its modifications, because this is a tech tree vehicle. You will have to modify it. It has all of the standard ones. You have thermals at rank 1, which is really nice, especially if you want to use this as kind of like a flanky scouty vehicle, which also works very well with it. You also have the laser rangefinder at rank 1-2, which is something you usually don't see with vehicles, unless their name starts with R and ends in A. So basically, or the country name, and this means that you can actually use the HE a lot more effectively than you could previously, because you get the laser rangefinder so early on. You get smoke grenades. The APDS is the tough part of this grind. The fact that it is a rank 4 modification definitely isn't great, because you're basically stuck with this APT shell until you get that, and guess what? It only pens 65. So you're going to be rat-a-tat-a-tatting at a bunch of vehicles, screaming at them, hoping to be able to pen them, and you won't be able to. It also has ESS, which can work, I suppose, at this BR, but not really. Most of the things you're going to face have thermals, and then also it has access to the scouting modifications, meaning that you can get in planes quicker, and also you can help your team by scouting around. You also get the drone, since it's a high-tier light tank, and also artillery support. So this vehicle has a bunch of different gizmos to basically make it incredibly fun. And if you haven't played the BMD-4 in the past, which, you know, I mean, not everybody has, because it's either a premium or a event vehicle from 2021, 4 years ago at this point, you should be really looking forward to this vehicle, because it's super enjoyable just to have more mobile vehicles that run around the place, and also at the same time are able to kind of deal with the meta vehicles that you see. Because one of the problems with this BR is there are certain nations which have these highly mobile, highly obnoxious vehicles, stuff like the Begleitpanzer, for example, and it's always nice to have a vehicle that can actually deal with it. So you can see the traverse on this thing, not just the turret, but also the chassis is incredibly good. The low-end acceleration is also great, and then you have, of course, the pop gun, and just to show you, that's that's the Donkey HE. And if you have a look at the kind of like the reload rates are slightly different, if I remember, between the AT-GEM and the other one. But you can actually fire the AT-GEMs on the move, which means that you can just punch them out and just hammer the targets. And then also, if I actually use the right ammunition, you can see that you can actually pen these things from the side. A lot of the NATO MBTs, which just do not have a lot of, they just do not have a lot of armor on the front of them. So the AT-GEMs themselves can be incredibly fun. You can also see there the post-penetration effect of the 30mm. And what this basically means is you can just have a great time wandering around. Oh look, there's a tank with the RA. Doesn't matter because you have a tandem warhead. Oh, there's a Centurion. That means that you can once again bonk it with the AT-GEM. And because of its very good mobility, and because of the fact that you have stuff like the ESS, you can actually use your thermals while sitting in ESS and be able to donk enemies at the same time. It just makes it so fun to play, and you can see how good the thermals are too. This vehicle also has a commander sight, but it doesn't have thermals, so you're basically stuck with this set of thermals, which isn't a bad thing. But with ESS, if you didn't know, if you haven't played a lot of high tier, ESS basically means that you can kind of sit in smoke and use your thermals, and enemies can't see you unless they're using thermals too. So it's pretty nuts at the end of the day that this thing has it. So yeah, this is going to be super fun, just like a lot of the other kind of like light vehicles that are around these VRs. I think a lot of people will just really enjoy just having a crazy autocannon against a lot of the other vehicles that are around. It just sucks that the APDS is a rank 4, but then again, a lot of vehicles around this VR have exactly the same issue, and that kind of sucks. Hopefully, they can make it a little bit easier to grind these things, especially with more vehicles coming in, but at least generally, you'll have a great time in this as you move around. Another thing to also mention, it has hydropneumatic suspension, which is just another random feature that this thing basically has. So when you think about mechanics, the BMDs basically have everything. It's pretty nuts. Look after yourselves. Peace be with you. I'll see you next time.
I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem, Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.